Welcome to Mystara for a riveting trip to the Karameikos capital, Specularum. What's so funny when I say Specularum? I will have you know that I have a very good friend that lives in Specularum. I will not have random people insult the hometown of my good friend Suavius. I will have you know that Grand Duke Stefan does not brook insult to his capital of Specularum. Wait till I tell my friend Suavius about your insult to Specularum. Does it amuse you when I say Specularum? It has a sister city in the Savage Coast, you know. Do you know what they called that one? Palma. Palma de Clitorius. And that, my friend, is why they renamed the city to Miros in 2nd edition. I'm Mr. Welch, and we're going to Specularum. Yeah, get it out of your system. I'm not kidding about them renaming the city of Specularum. Okay, knock it off, the joke's been told. Aaron Alston named the city with the Latin word for watchtower. A little lesson in etymology. Speciere means look in Latin. Ulum means tool in Latin, and larum means to arms. So, a looking tool, or a place to watch until you have to get your weapons. This knowledge didn't make the women at TSR snicker any less when they played the game or read the book. The town was literally renamed because it sounded too much like speculum. Even today when I run Mystaran games, I get the same snicker. Don't bother and try to explain the difference. You're not going to stop the giggles. Either live with them or use Meros. Thus concludes today's Latin lesson. The majority of the sources on Specularum come from the Grand Duchy of Karameikos, the Adventure of Nests and Nations in Dungeon 13, the Veiled Society, and Lathan's Gold modules, though the modules give little more than a few more places to visit. The city is located near the High Reach River and the Gulf of Marilanev, though it's not directly on the Gulf. There are some continuity problems with the size of the city, but the word of the immortals says the gazetteer information trumps everything else in case of conflict. The last census in Specularum was in 965, and that put the population at a shade under 50,000, and the population is now much larger. The city is cramped. It's too small for its population, and the buildings reflect it as the streets are narrow and the buildings are built with no space in between them, making fire a serious hazard. Sanitation is a single trench dug in the middle of each street, which does wonders for the smell. Water is supplied from wells, with multiple dug across the city. The population is split between the native Traladara and Thyacians, who either came with the Grand Duke when he took control of the nation, or they were descendants from the original invaders nearly a century ago. There are racial tensions, but they've been easing with the general benevolent rule of the Grand Duke. The city is divided into multiple districts, with all the foreign quarter and part of the south end contained in the outer Duke's Wall. Entry to the city is through one of the 5 gates, as well as the Sea Gate, which allows access to Mirror Bay, where the Navy is located. The secondary port is just north of the city, known as the Traders' Corridor, where the ships have to be unloaded onto wagons that are then brought in through the Duke's Gate. The Traders' Corridor is the only part of the city to be wholly located outside of both city walls. The most important part of the city is the Duke's Stronghold, located on Market Hill, at the highest part of the city. Here is where the royal family resides, where the Grand Duke holds court, and where all government business is conducted. By law, any citizen of Karameikos can entreat the Grand Duke for relief at the palace, though in reality most cases are settled through minor bureaucrats who try to settle the issues before they reach the ears of the Grand Duke. Only the royal family and a few servants live in the ducal stronghold, making it the least populated of all the districts. Bricktop is the affluent part of the city, located to the east of the ducal palace. The population is mostly Thyacian, though wealthy Traladarans are welcome. The district is named for the Bricktop Road, and the word Bricktop means high quality in the city slang. It is well patrolled at all times of the day, and people not from the district tend to stick out. The district is split between 2 parts because of the merchant district, but they're close enough that it's considered part of the same area. The Duke's Park is the only district apart from the foreign quarter contained outside the old wall of the city. It is a private park that lies between the old wall and the Duke's Wall on the western side of the city. It is used as a game preserve for the Duke and his family. You need permission from the Seneschal Alexius Corrigan to even enter the park. It's also heavily patrolled as poaching is a threat to the animals within. Most citizens of Specularum will never even get a glance at the park, no matter how long they've lived in the city. The foreign quarter is located between the old wall and the Duke's Wall on the northern section of the city. This is one of the poorer areas of the city, as evidenced by being located outside the old wall. It's populated by outsiders from other nations, and it has a significant population of demi-humans as well. It's also heavily targeted by street gangs who do not appreciate the foreigners living in their city. The hill is where the truly elite of Karameikos live. There's the Western Hill section and the Eastern Hill section, but they're both just known as the Hill. Here, the estates are set apart from each other compared to the cramped homes found throughout the rest of the city. Ethnicity doesn't matter here. Money does. Most of the population is Sanitation, but the powerful Toronescu clan has several estates located across the district. Outside of the palace, there is no other district more patrolled by the City Watch. There are two merchant districts in the city, with the lesser merchant district being the smaller of the two. These districts are where you'll find the heart of the city, with stores, inns, taverns, and street peddlers selling all sorts of goods and services to anyone with coin. All the major families in Specularum have a presence in the merchant districts, and if a good or service will be available in the city, it will be found here. There are numerous rivalries between the various merchants, and there will always be work available to anyone willing to lift heavy things or engage in a little bully work. The Nest is the oldest part of the city. It's also the most crowded. The streets are narrow, the buildings are built right on top of each other. Crime is so rampant the city guard doesn't bother patrolling unless there's a riot. It's not safe to walk the streets at any time of the day. If you need to hire an assassin, this is where you'll find them. Illegal goods are hawked openly in the alleys. The crime bosses run the Nest, not the Duke. The Old Quarter is the second oldest neighborhood after the Nest, and is the second most populated as well. Here the population welcomes the town guard, and the neighbors look out for each other. It's still just as much of a maze here, and crime is still very much a problem, but muggings and murders in broad daylight are rare compared to the much more dangerous Nest. North and South End are located on their respective sides of the city and represent the middle class of Specularum. South End is home to the Magicians Guild of Karameikos. The school doesn't actually even look like a wizard's college from the outside, it's just a barn with an attached tower, as Guildmaster Teldon just took an existing building to create the guild. It later gets moved with the construction of the new college in Krakatos, just north of the city. North End contains the shipbuilders of the naval dockyards, who employ a large number of those citizens. In the poorer areas, the city is dominated by the various old families or the Thieves' Guild. Street gangs are common, and a secret group known as the Veiled Society targets Thyacians and also Traladarans to get too friendly with them. The Iron Ring Slavers Guild can make people disappear on the outskirts, especially in the Foreign District. In the poorest areas, the only protection people have is what they pay for or what they provide for themselves. The city contains the temples that represent all three of the major religions located in Karameikos, though the Church of Halav is an unadorned building as the cult is quite small compared to the other churches. The Church of Karameikos is a grand building that towers over the nearby businesses and houses. The Church of Traladara is a much more practical building, smaller in scale and nowhere near as impressive on the outside. The churches tend to reflect their parishioners, with the wealthier Thyacians preferring the religion that came along with them, and the poorer Traladarans going to the much more restrained, older church. The militant arm of the Church of Karameikos, the Order of the Griffin, is also headquartered here, but only as a training facility, as its members spent most of their time in the countryside on quests. Specularum is one of the most important cities in Mystara, at least for the players. It has numerous modules and adventures tied to it. It was the first large city described in the setting itself. The Grand Duke is accessible to the party. The only true city adventures found in the B series are the Veiled Society, and it's based in Specularum. It's set up to be both DM and player friendly at the same time. It's got numerous adventures, but it has them across the whole scale of the game, so it doesn't matter what level you are, somebody there will have a job for them. Next week I'm taking a dive at a classic Mystaran monster, the Erenia, the spider folk that proved so popular in their original appearance they were transported not only to the Red Coast, but also borged into the Forgotten Realms. A race that's so cool they have 2 sets of Erenia based on where you are. This one's not going to be for arachnophiles. But until then, remember to warm up Specularum before introducing it to your players.